pleasure to be here with all of you and with Naama. I love that Naama is kind of introducing us to a new way of doing Torah and one way of what female-led Torah could look like. And in so doing, introducing us to Yemima and to her other teachers. And it's such a special experience for all of us to be here together. And I want to thank Ariella for everything that she does to bring us together. But most of all, I want us to kind of experience Naama's Torah and Yemima's Torah and kind of dream together about what women's Torah could look like in all its different permutations. So thank you so much, Naama.
Thank you. It's always so. Thank you. It's really great to be here. And it was a very nice little Drishat Shalom. Losing my words, but like the first person in the chat wrote that she's calling in from Prince Edward Island, and my other big teacher is Anne of Green Gables, I would say. I don't know, I just read these books so many times, I feel it's so imprinted in me, so thank you for bringing Prince Edward Island here, and yourself, of course. So hello everyone, and happy Lag BaOmer. We're celebrating today the 33rd day of the Omer. And I actually forgot about it, and Ariel reminded me. But like many things in life, you know, things kind of like have their weird way of coming together. And I would say that Lag BaOmer is like such a time of fire, you know. We are doing a lot of people are making little fires, definitely in Israel, but I think also here. And it's the time of also of gathering. I mean, this is the time that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the writer, the composer, the author of the Zohar, left the world. And he said to his students, everything is dependent on love. And he meant everything depends on the love between you. And all his teachings were really also kind of like walking together and talking. So I feel like this is a night of like a lot of strength and fire and kind of like, you know, the fiery part of life. So it's very appropriate that tonight we are going to really, really dive into the omes, into the burden, into the places that are really hard for us. They're very fiery, sometimes a fire that eats us. And I just want to start with what we did last time as well. We already walked together through two gates. The first gate was the gate of Hakara, consciousness. What is our consciousness made of? And the second gate was the gate of Hitkarvut, of coming close to ourselves. And today we will walk together through the third gate, the gate of Omes, really the gate of the burden, the things that really bother us, the kind of doubts and sadness and anger and all the things that come in kind of loops and stop us, that are a place of non-flow. So I'm sure we all have thoughts about it. We will talk about how Yemima understood it and also how we're working with it. But before we're diving into the Omes, I would love if people can put in the chat, what are some insights or words that they walked with from our last gate? What's some wisdom that you can bring to our room from your own understanding, your own insights on Hakara and Hitkarvut? So whatever it is that you remember, maybe it's totally blurred in your mind, maybe there's something that stuck from last week and you walked with through this week. So if you can just give it back to us, echo to us, what Torah kind of like came through you of Hitkarvut? What did you walk with this week? Thank you. So make less of an effort to be accepted and to allow ourselves to be with us, to be with me, even in hard days, to turn towards and to pay attention when we don't. Your right to exist precedes all. Observing the flow and the burdens, the interchange, what happens when you focus on one then the other. Really thought of the idea that if you aren't turning towards yourself, you're turning away, and trying to be intentional about how you treat yourself. Because of this, accepting my strength and weaknesses instead of wishing I had someone else's strength and weaknesses. Noticing a moment, what makes my heart beat faster, sink, tracing back where emotions come from. I've realized that I've always accepted myself as I am, not to compete with others. I didn't realize that others did not feel this. Wonderful. Thank you so much for these words. And I really feel like it's very important to remember the softness of Hitkavut and the kind of kindness of Hitkavut and the turning towards ourselves as we're working and walking towards the Omes. So thank you for bringing these insights here. And let's start with our regular question. How am I doing today? What am I bringing with me to class? How am I? So we'll take a minute to journal, and then we'll do a short dictation. How am I doing today? So let's take a few more seconds to wrap up. All right. I want to give you a short snippet. This one, again, was given from Yemima to Idit Shalev and from Idit Shalev to me, and I give it to you. And I'm going to read it very slowly so that people can write, let the words go through your body, your ears, whatever you hear is what you need to hear. And last week we had some wonderful variations on some of the words. So, all right. The learner goes through the gate of mercy. The learning is a process that takes a lot of compassion. Growth is dependent on the ability to have compassion. Mainly for oneself. The flexibility to expand my self-acceptance is the secret of the womb the secret of new life. I'm gonna ask you to take time with this snippet in a moment, but I just want to say that the Hebrew word for mercy or compassion is rachamim, and that is also the root of the word womb, rechem. So there's like a little bit of a word play here, that the learner goes through the gate of mercy, through the gate of rachamim, of compassion. The learning is a process that takes a lot of compassion. Growth is dependent on the ability to have compassion, mainly for oneself. The flexibility to expand my self-acceptance is the secret of the womb, the secret of new life. I do want to ask you now to take a minute with the words and see which words open to you, what kind of like first insights you're getting from it, and please put it in the chat, and then we will talk about it. Laura, I see here your comment. The word rach that we spoke about last time, the first time actually, with hakara, is resh chaf, but it does sound very similar to rechem, which is resh chet mem. So they're a little different, but the sound definitely is very similar. And the words you put in the chat were expand. Learning takes compassion. Compassion for oneself. Learning itself is going through Shah HaRachamim, the gate of mercy. Growth depends on compassion for self. I heard nose through the gate of mercy. Goes through the gate of mercy. Yeah. The nose is really great. As a mother, I have a lot of compassion for my children's growth, but not much for my own. Compassion is necessary for growth, womb, safety, protectedness. Mercy, I see if as having the power to bestow it rather than accept it. I think it is hard to accept. Learning in that sense is grace, is a gift. The learning is a process that takes a lot of compassion. Right, we spoke a little bit about it in the breakout groups. Making mistakes is how we learn. Right. Thank you so much for these words. Okay, so I want to say a few things about the learner, because that's going to be very helpful for us now with the omis. The question, I mean, we spoke about how Yemima understands the consciousness, or how she understands the inner world. And we said that basically one of the binaries that she suggests is that there's like only two kind of like frequencies within us. One is omes and one is yesh. One is burden and one is flow. And basically, we're either on a broken wave, on a wave that is in loop. So we're either in burden, which means we're kind of looping, and I'm going to talk about it in a moment, or we're kind of growing through something, and that can still be wavy, but we're moving somewhere. That is when the flow, when the yesh is the state of mind that we're in. Now the question is really, how does it happen? How does it happen that we have yesh and omis, and why do some people have more omis than others? Why do some people have more sadness or more anger than others? Why do some people have more doubts, self-doubts, and I mean, why do we have in different times of our life more of that? So I want to say one thing before we start speaking about the omis itself, about the learner that she speaks about. You see that she starts and she says, the learner goes through the gate of mercy. So she already tells us that we are all learners. And that's another binary. So you see that she has a lot of binaries. It's like either you turn towards yourself or you turn against. So for me, it's very helpful. I mean, because a lot of small binaries in the end create a very big tapestry. But like in the situation itself, it helps me identify what's going on. Either I turn towards myself or I turn against myself. So the other binary, right? Either I'm in yesh or I'm in omis. Soon we're going to talk about it and we'll be able to identify it more. This is why we call the gate of today Zihuy, which is identifying. So we want to be able, we learned about our inner world. We learned that movement of turning towards. Now we want to be able to have more tools to identify what's going on when we're turning against. What's going on, like what's happening with this burden. And next time that we're meeting, we're going to learn exercises of how we work with the omis and how we're kind of like balancing it. But I said that, okay, so we have the binary of turning towards and turning against, omis. Actually, one person I saw called it, oh, mess. Okay, and it's like very messy, or it's a little messy, but yeah, omis. In Hebrew, ayin, vav, mem, samech, burden, heaviness. So we have the turning towards and turning against. We have the omis and the yesh, and parallel to that, we have the learner and the child. So today we're going to talk a lot about the child. Now, the child, sometimes people use this idea, right? The inner child that we have. Yemima thinks that we are also moving between the child or the learner. All the time, one of them is leading our mind. One of them is holding the wheel, the wheel and driving us. The child is, we have to really respect her. The child is very strong, but the child is a little rigid. And what it means is the child is the place that really tries to protect. We're going to talk about her a lot in a moment. And she's where we learned the strategies that now are omis for us. So as children, when sometimes we didn't get enough warmth because of all kinds of reasons, something felt very, very frightening to us, or not understandable, or just overwhelming, and we felt very vulnerable. And as children, we developed all kinds of strategies to deal with that. And these were incredible strategies that show of the strength of the child. But these strategies are just not needed anymore. But we still use them. That's the omes, in very short explanation that, again, we will dive into in a moment. The learner is when I'm moving from the child that has these strategies or patterns that she already knows to use every time she recognizes a trigger. The learner is the state of mind that I can move to now as an adult, where I'm saying, okay, I see it. Is this what I need for my existence at the moment? Or is this not what I need for my existence this moment? The learner, the difference between the learner and the child is that the learner has the consciousness. The learner has the hakara, and therefore the learner can choose hitkarut, and the learner can do the growth. So when Yemima speaks to us and she says, halomedet nitzevet, the learner goes through the gate of mercy, she says, you are the learner. You are the learner. You are the child as well. But you can always go back to being a learner and take yourself to the next place. And you will go many, many times with the child. That's fine. But as my teacher sometimes says, children don't drive cars. And if they do, we have to take the wheel from their hands. So that's also true for ourselves, never with anger, never with accusations. We'll see that the omes is actually so beyond our understanding. I mean, the thing that we did as children was so incredible and so resilient that we can't solve it at all with analyzing, thinking about it. The only thing we can do with that is tichum, demarcation, and we will get to it soon. But first, we want to talk about the roots of the omes. Then we will talk about the tichum that we're doing, the demarcation that we're doing with the omes. But basically, really, we want to ask now first, how is the omes created? And that's our first question for today. So I'm starting with another short sentence from a different chelek from Yemima, a different part that she gave, where she says, I'm going to say it in Hebrew just quickly, and then I'll repeat it in English. Mirashit melacha hakara liyeshuat Hashem, tamid b'makom lo b'mikre. From the beginning, from the dawn of the craft, we are conscious of God's redemption, always in place, not a coincidence. So just to go back to this thing that we already mentioned, this flow that sometimes is flowing and sometimes is blocked, there's a divine flow that is going through us. We're all created. There's like a divine flow within us. And just like when we start the craft, when we start the work, when we start introducing ourselves to the omes, just to know things are not, it's not a coincidence. And sometimes it's very painful. And for all kinds of reasons, she says, parents are not for no reason, partners are not for no reason, children are not for no, like you're getting these parents because of some reason, we can't explain why, but she says, and some parents, she says, come with so much burden themselves that this is what they can do. But the kind of very hopeful and incredible thing for me, I feel, and hopefully I hope you can feel that too, is that we're not fully dependent on our parents anymore as adults. Sometimes we feel like we are, like what happened in childhood and shaped us, that's it. But the beautiful thing is that we are learners. So we are flexible, and our consciousness is made of so many parts and so many particles, and there is flexibility there. And the more we are coming closer to ourselves and opening up to our inner world, the more we can work with places that are stuck for us, and for all kinds of reasons that sometimes are way, way beyond us. So we spoke about a few binaries. Another binary that Yemima presented to her students was, she said, children only understand two things. They understand warmth or non-warmth. That's it. You can say all kinds of words, you can say all kinds of things, but she says, in the end, children, they kind of sense warmth or non-warmth. Was that said or delivered or given with warmth or non-warmth? Now, this is not an accusation. I mean, I have some friends who are saying, the moment I know I'm pregnant, I'm starting to don't think that's at all Yemima's intention, to blame parents for all kinds of things. She definitely thought that these omasim, these burdens, are being created in childhood, in relationships between the parents themselves and between the parents to the children. But the way she presented it, it wasn't just like, the parents' responsibility and you had to be doing everything right, and if you didn't, then you have to save to send your kid to a great psychologist. I think she was more thinking, or at least this is how she presented it, that you make mistakes, and your parents made mistakes, and maybe their parents made mistakes too, and sometimes people have more capacity to be with warmth and sometimes less, and there's different souls that need more warmth or less warmth. I don't know all these things, but eventually what happens is that our childhood happens and we're vulnerable and we're overwhelmed many times, and we're just comprehend what we can comprehend, and we kind of feel, oh, there's warmth, I'm safe, I can make mistakes, I'm learning how to be with Yesh, or I'm learning I'm not feeling warmth, maybe this is dangerous, how can I protect myself? And I'm learning all kinds of things. I might learn to be sad so that I can get attention. I might learn to be angry so that I can feel important, and all kinds of things. Again, this is not a psychological analysis, and I don't know all the reasons and all the things. I do know the 3 roots the Yemima suggested for Omes, and the kind of work that we can do with it. The work that she suggests, again, also doesn't go to analyzing exactly the situation, what happened in what year. And she says, the child is with you right now. It didn't stay in the age of 4 or the age of 6. It's in our consciousness. And if you remember the first class, we were learning about all these wires and how the echo and the sounds go between the wires. So it's everywhere. But the flow and the learning too are everywhere. So the question is, how much can we open up from these things that are stuck in loops? How much can we open up? And sometimes we can open more, sometimes we can open less, but yeah. But anyhow, this is the Omes. I didn't bring the Chelek itself, but if you'll want to, and if you will learn more Yemima, she did 4 introductions to the learning every time people started learning with her. And one of the introductions is just speaking about the Omes and how it's created in childhood with the warmth and non-warmth, in the relationships with parents, and how some of us have many of it and some of us have a little burden. But she says everybody can work with it and everybody can work through it, and you're not problematic, you just might have burden, and that burden can be released, but the burden decides when it's being released. You don't decide for the burden. So we're going to learn soon about how to work with it. But again, as I said, we really respect it. It was a response of resilience in childhood. It wasn't against us. It's still there to try to protect us. It's just not adapted anymore. So here are the 3 roots that she suggests for Omes. She says, and this is actually, I also heard from Idit Shalev, her student. One root is self-worth. And the question there is that the child asked is, am I enough? And I'm giving this question because I'm just already giving a little spoiler that in 2 weeks when we're going to learn about melacha, the first thing we'll want to ask ourselves is like, when something happened and escalated, was that the question? Do I feel that that's what resonates with me? Was I feeling not worthy? Was I feeling that I'm not enough? So one Omer can sometimes be triggered by this feeling of like, I'm not enough. And again, this is like, often, the child really looks outside because the child is really dependent on people around us. So like, if I get the feeling that I'm not enough for people, I might kind of create all kinds of strategies to work with it. Maybe I'll push back, or maybe I'll overplease, or, everybody. And there are so many varieties of omes. It's endless, yours. And if you don't, then slowly you pay more attention and you'll see them. But that's the first question, the first root of the omes. The second root of the omes is guilt or shame. So if the first one was more self-value, the second one is more about guilt and shame. And the question that comes with this often is, did I do it right? Sorry, did I hurt someone? As children also, there's like this kind of like, we don't fully understand our context. So sometimes we feel like, oh, if we say this, we can do everything. If we ask for it, we will get everything. If someone's sad, it's because of us. It really is a very real feeling for children. And you might feel guilt and shame for all kinds of things. And again, you will develop all kinds of strategies. And these are amazing strategies for resilience. And these are now burden for you. So the second root is guilt or shame. Did I do it right? Did I do enough? Did I hurt someone? The third root is safety. Am I going to be safe? It can come up as like, I invested in something so much. Am I going to get any kind of like anything back? Am I going to get a return on my investment? So we have self-value, we have guilt and shame, and we have safety. And these roots are there, these definitions are there to help us just identify. This is what we do today, Zihuy. We just want to be able to identify what's going on, because we go back to our first gate, to hakara, to consciousness, and we know that there's so many parts and particles. And the one thing that is really going to help us a lot with the omes is to understand also that the omes is also just a part or a particle in my experience. Because sometimes when it comes up, the omes has this character that it makes us feel like this is the whole reality. This is everything. This is what's happening now, or this is who I am. And our work with it will be the work of demarcation, will be the work of saying, I am also this. Or this is also part of my experience, but this is not actually needed for my existence anymore. That will be a lot of our work. And I want to give one more layer to this. So we spoke about the omes, how it's created, what are the three roots of the omes. But one more layer is coming actually from my grandmother, Koti Sadan. And I think I told you that she was the one who led me into learning Yemima. And after she died, I found on her computer, she wrote down her classes every week. She went to class and then came back and typed it, and also wrote her own insights on the whatever she learned in class, and wrote her melachot, which is the craft of demarcating, which we will learn in our last session. So I was going through her writings before class, and one thing that I found that I think kind of gives another layer to understanding what's going on inside when omes comes is she wrote, if I feel unworthy, or rejected, I have to know this is omes. And omes, in a way, is illusory. Yemima called omes also illusory. She also called it hafuch. She had all kinds of names for it. But it's illusory not because it's not real, but because it's not connected to my reality right now. It's coming from a different time in my reality. It triggers something that happened a long time ago. I'm not as vulnerable right now. And when I feel that I'm totally against myself, so my grandmother wrote to herself, I have to know with full confidence, this is a mistake. If I'm saying to myself totally like things against myself, here are her 6 things to remember at these points of time. If I'm totally against myself, this is a mistake. It's not me. It's temporary. It's not my fault. It doesn't say anything about me. It's only a small part of me. The omes will say exactly the opposite. The omes will say to you, this is exactly reality. This is you. It's always like that. It's your fault. It just tells you who you are, and it's all of you. And to that, my grandmother suggests, when you feel these moments where like you're totally against yourself, what you want to remember is these 6 things. I'm just going to repeat it last time. It's a mistake. It's not me. It's temporary. It's not my fault. It doesn't say all about me, and it's only a part of me. And then she says, when I feel these like big waves against me, I just know that it's the child trying to protect, and I can contain it as just a part of my experience that is not necessarily connected to the reality of right now. And then I can feel a little bit of expansion, and I have some more resources to deal with the situation. If I keep just like judging myself, I will feel emptiness. If I keep judging myself or going in repetitive loops, I will feel emptiness. Now, all of this is not judgmental, just to say, how can I identify what's going on for me? If I feel that I'm going in repetitive doubts or repetitive critique or kind of constant movement that makes me feel empty, it's omes. Now, when I know that it's omes, it's easier for me to just tag it, name it. And naming it is exactly the beginning of work. Now, we never, 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 never fight omes, which will look like yelling at ourselves. Why do you have to be so angry? Why do you have to have so much burden? That is what Yemima called omes al omes on top of omes. So when we have omes, the first thing, of course, to do is to accept it and to say, hi, omes, we're not fighting with you. Yeah, so I saw the comment. I'm gonna relate to it in a moment. Just to say that this is a really important thing. If you're in the middle of omes, you don't need to do anything about it except for just naming it as omes. Exactly that. If I'm really angry or really like, the best I can do is just to say, oh, ani beomes. I'm now experiencing omes. So just tagging it as omes, tagging it as burden, kind of like starts to do that differentiation in my mind. Like, okay, this is a moment of omes. This is not all of me, but that allows me to just kind of like start categorizing my inner world. So if this happens, this is a burden. I will do work with it after the fact, but not in the time of the omes happening. In the time that the omes happening, it's like when you get into, if you go into the ocean and there's like a, how do you call it, marbolet, a spiral. The right thing to do is just not to move.
A tide pool.
A tide pool. You just kind of need not to move. And And if you're moving too much, it will just pull you. So the omes is similar. If you feel the pull of the omes, you be there. You need to be angry at the moment, you'll be angry at the moment. It's fine. But you want to be able to just name it. It's omes, not to fight it. And we will talk about how to work with it after the fact. Okay, I feel like that was a lot. I want to stop for a moment. And I want us to go into breakout rooms to take time to just take 1 minute to just go through whatever you wrote to yourselves or whatever you thought, and just kind of like share with other people. If you want, just from the first journaling, how am I doing today? That's totally fine. And if you want, you can share also, what is a route that I feel I know? What are places where I feel like omes can grab me fast? Or whatever other insight that you have about omes and about like the conversation that we just had about the roots of the omes and the 6 kind of like things that the omes will tell you, and you want to be you want to know. So yeah, we're gonna go for 4 minutes. There's gonna be 3 people per room. So take 1 minute in the beginning just to journal to yourselves. See what comes up to you, what you feel comfortable sharing. If you want to be quiet, that's totally fine too. And then there will be 3 minutes, a minute per person to do a little bit of sharing, and then we'll come back here. Are we all back?
Almost.
Okay. All right. Welcome back. I hope the breakout rooms were a nice experience. A big part of Yemima usually really is the ability to talk to other people and let the words go through you and share insights. Yeah, if you're willing to share with us in the chat a little bit of, what came up for you, what you in your room, I would love to see it. Yeah, so I will be looking at the chat. It's a little bit of, could feel like a heavy topic, omes. So I just want, like, from our little breakout room here, I just want to say that for me, I feel like learning about omes at some point was a relieving process, just to know it's normal to have burdens. Everybody has burdens. This is how we're created emotionally, socially. It's not that we have a problem. We just have burdens that we work with. That is kind of like our soul journey to work with. So it's, when you see the burden, the beautiful thing is you can see it. That's already a growth. And it's our soul is like, our inner world is like so flexible. We can move stuff. And the burden is there. And sometimes Yemima even called it our inner teacher. So not to feel sad about the burdens. I mean, they are hard, but they're not against us and we're not against them. So just looking at the chat here. Identifying the source of the omes, identifying the omes, its root, somehow deflates its power. Yeah. So again, right, the omes is not external to us. It is part of our experience, part of how our plasticity, whatever they're called, routes in our mind were shaped, and it can be changed. And when it feels warmth, that's the thing that we're going to talk about in a moment with demarcation. When the omes feels the warmth, when the part of us that feels burdened feels the warmth, slowly it is being released in its own time. Like we said last time, no, maybe in the first time, there's some process there, and we can't control the speed. But when it's ready, it's released, and then we're moving on to something else. Yeah, we carry a lot of other people's stuff, and right. So Yemima thinks on things as really relational. So like something in the relation between us, right? Not that we took it from them, but something in the meeting of the frequencies created omes for us. Identifying the omes and the root, yeah, shows that it wasn't really about you, it was about someone else's burden. Often it's true. They need to fix it. Okay, amazing. It seems like, thank you so much for being open in the rooms and talking about these things. I'll just say that unfortunately or fortunately, this series is so short that we're not getting into like a lot of other things, but like just one image that I do want to share, and hopefully maybe will be helpful to some people. But sometimes it is true, other people are in their own burden, and we might not have like very strong boundaries at this point or the other, maybe because we're tired or because we're weak that day or because of all kinds of different burdens that we carry. And then it resonates with us too much. So one little trick that I like is, she says, sometimes someone starting saying very severe things to you and even yelling, and you know that they're talking from omes, because when someone does that, they're always talking from omes. She's like, and then imagine just the words go from their mouth straight to the floor. I find that in a respectful way, just because I'm doing too many spoilers. We're getting into demarcation right now. And demarcation is really putting the boundaries. And going back to where we started with the womb. The womb is a boundary. It feels safe, and it feels controlled, and it feels like a place where you feel totally held because it's a boundary. Not everything can get into the womb. There's like a very strong boundary. It's a very containing place. And the work that we're doing with demarcation, all the work that we're doing, actually all the work that we can do, according to Yemima, is just putting boundaries. The boundaries are not to be rigid, but they're to differentiate the different experiences and open space. And the boundaries are between us and other people, but also within us in our experience. So what I want to do is I want to read to you now a longer part. I'm not going to be able to dictate it because it's pretty long, but I will read it twice. And I'm asking you to write down the words that speak to you, the words that resonate with you, the words that open for you. And then I want to discuss demarcation. And what does it mean? In Hebrew, we call it tichum. Tichum, maybe if you recognize from Shabbat, tchum Shabbat. So tichum is about demarcating, but in Hebrew, it also means like containing. There's a tchum, there's a place that is contained within boundaries. And the other thing about this word in Hebrew is you can hear in it the word chom, warmth. So Yemima suggests that when we demarcate our inner experience, when we're able to say, oh, that experience was omes, and we can talk about it this is a place where we give it warmth. When we respect it, we say, okay, this is the omes. This is where I felt omes, not fighting it, not judging it, just trying to understand it. And I'm giving it warmth. And that is the place of demarcation. So the place of demarcation is really, we're going back to where we started. The omes starts from the feeling of non-warmth. And we're going back to that place and say, oh, this was a place where I experienced omes. Today, someone said something to me and I was really triggered and I yelled at them. Okay, whatever, I yelled at them. Happens. After the fact, when I sit down with myself to write about it, I say, wow, that was an experience of omes. The more I do it, I'm able at the event itself to say, oh, now omes is happening, and to give it warmth and to give myself warmth in that place. I don't want to be in burden, but here it is, I am in burden. And can I demarcate this and say, okay, this is something that happened. This is something that is called omes. This is something that is not necessary for my existence, and give it warmth. Because when I do the demarcation, I'm kind of saying, okay, I'm giving it its little house, its little home, so that it doesn't take over all my experience. Actually, sometimes when I have omes, and I do the demarcation, I actually imagine that instead of taking all of my headspace, I'm just putting it here in the side in like a little fence. I don't know if it's helpful for anyone. This is how I came to imagine it sometimes. If I have too many doubts, or if I have a lot of sadness, at the time of it, when it happens, I don't want to fight it, but I want to just say softly about it, oh, omes, okay, and to give it space, but not to let it take over the whole thing. Okay, I want to read. Okay. Omes components, such as resistance, doubt, or any rejection, are mental components which are unneeded to the mind. Nefesh in Hebrew. So you can also read mind as soul or emotion. They weaken its power to take part in the necessary balance. The rejection affects the mind, body, and all other functions. That is, every excessive part is imprinted in all. For example, a doubt in the mind will be found in the thinking. Resistance equals a blockage, also in thinking, and then overgiving in, contraction, shrinking, and its effects on your actions and outcomes. That is, we learn not only to achieve improvement, but steady arrival, a constant growth that is not rooted in information. This development is rooted in the system's constant change by insights, implementation, and its outcomes. What changes? The personal growth and self-strengthening, i.e., the good in her heart and thought are revealed to her as possible. Is the omes you? No. The omes is imprinted in all, but it is not you. Your mental strength is found in you, like the strength of your heart to give is present. The power of the thought is present in you. What does it mean? Let's assume that the learner, because of the omes, knows the sadness in her heart more than her joy, and maybe not sure she can engage in the learning or in the profession she would like. There is a self-persuasion that does not allow for obtaining confidence in her attainment. So in this learning, the real mending we do is to restore the present strength to the parts, cleaning them of the omes, clearing them of their weakness. And then, when sadness comes up, and here the learner understands, she applies, and can, in a short time, realize that her joy in her heart by her diuk, precision, towards her heart, towards herself. I'm reading just a little more. One of the parts that explain this part here precisions allows for openness, the openness of the parts, the heart, the thought, to regain their power and flow. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I kind of want to read a lot more to you, but I think, yeah, maybe just one more sentence. Joy can return to a sad heart, and the power of thought can return to the thought. Yeah, I can put it in the chat. It's all things that I cut from here and from there. And yeah, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it now to copy and all these things, so maybe I'll send it to you, Ariel. Okay, so I'm just reading again. Oh my gosh, now I see the time. I'm not reading again. Thank you for reflecting, Carol. What is restored in this segment is a sense of one's own innate power that never leaves us. I really trust these words. I know that I just read it to you and not even dictated it. And I know that sometimes these words can sound like, what is the connection between the words? What's going on in this sentence? What's happening? So I really encourage you to see which word just opened up for you. This is not about, these words are not, the sentences are often not about logic, but there's something that opens up. And I do want to summarize for us, and then I'm going to stay for the 15 minutes for whoever wants to talk more. Just that the Omer is a place that pushes us to a narrow place. And I was planning to sing, and now I remember, but I forgot to sing. I was planning to sing Mina Meitza. Just Mina Meitza Karatia Anani Ba'merchavia. The Omer really puts us in this kind of like narrow place, a place of worry, a place of forcefulness. We're trying to force reality to be something with these responses. Something triggers us and we're trying to be forceful, to be angry, to be sad, to be, it's not that we're doing it in any kind of intentionality. It's just that this is, these are strategies that are so embedded in us and are in all our experience. What we want to do with our work in Yemima is to remember that there are other parts in us, that the Omer is just one strategy that we learned. It's not us. The flow, the yesh, that flows in us, our soul, and whatever it has to do in this world, is the one that shows us the direction. And until we're dead, and Bezrat Hashem, 120 in health, we're always growing. Our soul always keeps growing. And there's always work that we can do. And one of the works that we can do is to demarcate the Omer and to say, oh, I feel that I'm getting into a place of forcefulness, a place of weakness. And when we are there, we are creating our little wombs of compassion, our little places of rachamim. The place of rachamim is not a place of, okay, whatever, it is what it is. It is what it is. And I'm the learner, and I can put a little fence around here to demarcate for myself. Oh, this is Omer. This is the soft power that we're using. that allows us to start seeing our omes, really seeing it, really seeing ourselves, really giving it the warmth. And when we put the boundary there, slowly, the child can let go. And that's a process also that we have to trust, because it's not we can do the thing itself. I mean, the way that when someone carries someone in their womb, they can't do something about it, but you can create the conditions for balance. So you can create the boundary and give the warmth, and the child will release when she's ready to. And of course, the child is asked to, and the learner is asked to, but we're both in there. Okay. So that is our omes for tonight. I do have a few more things here that I wrote to myself, but I guess these were the things that we needed to learn for tonight. So hopefully, I hope it landed in a good place. Please, 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 you know, we're just doing it in one class, and this is the class that I feel is most triggering. So please remember that omes is totally normal. We all have burdens. It's part of life. We're working with it. And what we're trying to do is really just not to let the omes tell us that this is the whole story. Just kind of say there are more parts to the story. We really respect you. Are you necessary for our existence at this point in our life? So please be back with us in 2 weeks when we're going to talk about how we're actually practically doing the work of demarcation. We're going to learn the protocol of melacha and how we're working with the omes. And if you want to stay, please stay. If you need to go somewhere, please have a lovely, lovely night, and happy Lag BaOmer. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.